I'm going to talk about personal ethics and responsibility in the sense of your career. So this is going to be related specifically to a work environment. So personal ethics and responsibility in a commercial or business or work sense. And this is all about interactions with others. And of course, a lot of this can apply as well as in work to your personal life, because we're all human beings in a commercial or business sense. And one of the interesting things on this topic of ethics and responsibility is actually the choices that we make as human beings. And there's some interesting kind of observations, I think, that I'd like to say I'm going to be making as we go through this short session. Because I think for a lot of us, we're seeing a chaotic world right now. We're seeing a world where time is really precious. A lot of us are finding that time is a real commodity that we have to really invest rather than spend. And for a lot of us, the time that we're spending has to be, super, super precious. So what we're going to look at here are some of the ways and means to actually lead a more ethical and responsible lifestyle, if you like, from a professional sense. And this conversation really has come about off the back of a number of, observations that I and Cambridge Marketing College have seen over recent months, predominantly this side of all the global disruption over the last couple of years. I think we've seen a shift, if you like, in terms of the way that people are interacting in a business or in a work sense. There is a lot of chaos, as I've said earlier. There's a lot of opportunity for those who choose to, act and interact from a kind of a higher level of purpose. That's a really, really big, important word in this conversation, because to kind of identify how responsible you are, to identify where you are on a spectrum of kind of sort of ethical values, if you like, you need to really begin by understanding what is your professional purpose. What is your reason for being, your raison d'etre, if you like, for being in a work sense? What is it you offer at the highest level? Not just the skills, not just the technical expertise or the years of wisdom, but combined with all of that, your kind of tone of voice, your style, your approach to work and other human beings, your collaborative sense of being within an organization and with all other stakeholders who you might encounter as you go through your working day. So there's a lot of play here. And of course, if we're starting to introduce this whole idea of ethics into the conversation, I mean, one of the questions I would begin with would be, well, would you want to buy from an unethical brand? And I guess the obvious answer is, well, no. If the products and services that you're looking to buy from an unethical brand, to have been sourced from, less than desirable places, not necessarily with great green or eco credentials. And there might be a big sort of cross rather than a big tick in the box from that particular brand. And you would certainly question, if not literally turn away and walk down the street to purchase from somewhere else. I mean, that is what you do with an unethical brand. None of us are consciously going to go seeking brands that don't have high ethical standards. So why, oh why, would anybody in a work or commercial sense think that they are any different? Because we all have a personal brand. So when we're starting to think about our purpose and our values, almost start by considering ourselves as a brand. So our own personal kind of entity, if you like, within an organization, business, not-for-profit, charity, wherever it is that you operate. Think of yourself as a sub-brand within that brand, reflecting the values of that brand, reflecting the kind of tone of voice and the style and the credentials of the others that you work with, because you are part of this brand. So it goes then without saying that, well, to be ethical, we all have to be ethical. We all have to have high moral values and a good kind of responsibility and accountability for how we actually come across. So this is going to be important. And of course, we see that evident most obviously within our personal style and tone of voice. So when we think about ourselves and how we might improve on our kind of, ethical or responsible or value-based position in an organization, we need to start thinking, well, how do we come across to others? And of course, we're not looking here at any play acting. We're not looking here to be subversive in any way, shape, or form. We're looking here to come at this from a very authentic, honest, and transparent way. So just putting the mirror up to ourselves and thinking, okay, if we're looking to be perceived as ethical and responsible, our personal style and tone of voice needs to reflect that. And not covering over the cracks, not trying to convince somebody of somebody that we're not, and kind of almost sort of lead a non-ethical lie, if you like, in a commercial sense, but actually being authentic and true and leading from the front. So actually saying, okay, my visual appearance, my personal style, the tone of voice with which I operate needs to reflect the kind of person that I both am, but also that I aspire to be in a commercial setting. So where are you then on a, if you could call it this, an integrity spectrum? Think about this for a moment. So if you can imagine the person that you might have in mind who is the most person who exhibits the highest levels of integrity that you can think of. Just think of somebody for a moment who is, a real kind of leading light in your world, somebody who you would always say you could trust, somebody who you would say is super reliable. It might be somebody you know directly, or just somebody that you know from afar, or somebody that you follow, for example. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a friend or a colleague or a peer. It could be somebody who you just know well enough to know that they're at the far, far positive end of the integrity spectrum. And then think of somebody then who you would say is possibly the most non-integrity driven person. So somebody who possibly is at the other end of the spectrum, who would not score well in terms of being ethical, having high principles and morals, doesn't respect other people's time, for example, is always late, doesn't take accountability or responsibility pretty much for anything, and is always looking to apportion blame. Now, that's a pretty unattractive trait, isn't it? Both in a personal, but also very much in a professional sense. So if you were to score them from 1 to 10, so 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, where would you see yourself? And be super honest with yourself here, right now. Where would you see yourself on the integrity spectrum? And you don't have to tell me the answer, just think of this for yourself. So you can be very honest. There is no kind of ego involved in this. You're not having to put on a brave face and saying, oh, well, I'm 9 out of 10. I might have a few little things that I could just tweak to become 10. Be super honest, because most of us are nowhere near that if we're being really, really honest with ourselves. But there's an opportunity here in this world of kind of chaos, this world of letdowns, this world of high pressure, fake news, lies and deceit. We have an opportunity here to kind of turn the tide on this. And it all begins with us. And that is something that's a really important thing to remember. So when it comes to ethics and responsibility, it begins with us from an ethical perspective, and us taking the responsibility and accountability for what happens next. And for a lot of us, this is based around what we might term our values, the things that we put most on a pedestal, the things that we most value in our lives. And that could be honesty. It could be that you can really put your hand on your heart and say to yourself, look yourself in the mirror and say, at all times, I endeavor to be the most honest person. It might be that you are designed with your values to serve others, and you will do anything to serve somebody else, and you'll do it to maybe even the detriment of yourself. And that to you is a value. So this isn't a judgment call. This isn't me saying, okay, I'm going to give you a checklist now. And if you tick the boxes here, you've got high values. Well done. You go into that group. And if you don't, not so good on you, you go into the other group. That's not what this is about. This is all about self-awareness and decision-making. Because we can all improve. We can all take this way, that kind of more ethical, responsible, accountable route, or we can go that way, which might not necessarily be serving us or those around us in quite such a positive way. But to me, it does all begin with our clear understanding of the things that we most value, both personally and professionally. Because from those values, we can start to think about and really understand how we make our decisions. Because our values, ethical values, responsible values, accountable values, they start to help us because they are a filter to make decisions. So we can choose the people we want to be with. We can choose whether we go down this path or that path. We can choose whether we consume this or that. All of the decisions that we make tend in a human sense to be based around our values. And what we tend to do is align ourselves with things that most reflect the values that we hold true to ourselves. So a lot of this is working from the heart rather than the head. A lot of this is feeling rather than thinking. And so, of course, this is where it starts to get really interesting, because you have to take the time to really get close to what this is all about. So let's just pause for a moment on this word values. We've had some really, really interesting stuff in the States. We've had the whole kind of Oscars Will Smith thing. How did that make you feel? What did you think about the values of what he claimed to be doing? What did you think about the values associated with those who have reported on it? What do you think about the way that the media handled all of the incident and the follow-up and the fallout and the final end result, or has it finished? The whole Will Smith thing has been a very interesting reflection on the things that we value as society right now. In the UK, we have what we might call Partygate, with the Conservatives who are in government being basically taken to the cleaners for breaking the lockdown rules whilst we were going through the COVID lockdowns. And how do you feel about that? Do you defend them? Do you rationalize their behaviors? Do you go in all guns blazing, firing those bullets at them? What are the values that you hold true to behavior like that, where it is, I'll say something that you need to do, but I'm not going to do it myself? That word hypocrisy. Where does that stand on your list of decision-making criteria? It's really interesting when you start to put real world examples into some of the theory here that we're talking about. But it's really important to just kind of reflect on these sorts of things, because what they do is they open up choices to us as we start to explore this way of becoming more responsible and accountable, and really understanding the kind of ethical stance and position that we have going forward. And the deeper we look into these things, what we begin to see is that actually a lot of the things that we might term values, a lot of the things that we do hold true as we're starting to make decisions, as we're starting to grow as human beings, professionally and personally, we start to encounter or uncover the word vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is a very, very interesting concept. If you haven't looked deeply into this, this is something I would really recommend that you do, because it can become quite fascinating. In the old days, 5-10 years ago or older, people used to use the word vulnerable as being a weakness. But it is very, very quickly over recent times, and certainly this side of the global crisis that we've been going through, it has become a strength. People who can identify with their vulnerabilities. You think vulnerabilities used to be perceived, oh, mental health, if you're not strong mental health, you're vulnerable, and that wasn't a good thing. Whereas now, if you have a vulnerability that you can share with others and speak openly, literally come out with your vulnerability over something like mental health, it is so considered a strength. The world has changed with the whole way that we view values and the way that we use values in our decision making. So as we begin to think more deeply about ethics and responsibility, how do you view the word vulnerability? How vulnerable are you in a public sense, both with your friends and your family, but also at work with your colleagues and your peers? Because there's an opportunity to choose here. And I'm not talking a black and white choice of ones and zeros, yes or no. Am I vulnerable? Am I not vulnerable? I'm talking about a spectrum. All of these things are on a spectrum. Would it be an interesting thing to explore as you learn more about yourself, as you uncover these opportunities for self-development arising from self-awareness, if you begin to explore how you can use things like your values, how you can use things like these filters and concepts like vulnerability to see how others react if you exhibit certain types of behaviors that you never used to do? It becomes a really interesting journey. And what it does is it starts to give us what we might term a social conscience. Because a social conscience is something that allows us to interact at a much deeper level with those around us, not see ourselves in isolation, not see ourselves as, well, my time is my time, my money is my money, my assets and resources, they're all mine, but actually view the world from a more collaborative, cooperative sense. And this is where things become very, very interesting, because choosing then correct or appropriate role models and influencers around you or within your line of sight gives you an opportunity then to be matching where you want to be with actually the capabilities that you have right now. So think about it. At the moment, when you think about a social kind of, let's just call this sort of social blueprint, if you like, of kind of how you lead your professional life, because I said we'd focus mostly on the professional commercial sense of your world right now. Think about actually how you choose your role models right now, and maybe influencers. And I'm talking influencers locally, so people you actually know, but also the wider kind of social media style of influencers, those who kind of help to guide your thinking, those who you trust and rely on to help kind of shape the narrative by which you actually work and play. Are they correct for what you're looking to achieve? Are they helping you to identify new opportunities and to grow? And if they're not, and they're inhibitors, or they're part of your older life, the life when you turn around and look behind you and think about where you've come from, are they still serving you here today? So choosing your role models and influencers very carefully allows you to develop this kind of social conscience, as we call it, that helps you to understand where you are on this ability to take more responsibility and accountability for the world and the life that you're leading. Now, of course, the key thing is here, I'm going to come back to that point that I made a little earlier, is that this is all about authenticity and honesty. Okay, so this is not The Apprentice. This is not the game show. This is not the, okay, so Neil's talking to me about this whole kind of, I've got to get some correct influences and role models are all about manifestation and motivation and, the rah-rah behind everything. But it's not the kind of person I am, but I need to kind of live and act out this kind of pseudo kind of lifestyle because it's the correct one to do. That's not what we're saying. This is about meeting yourself where you are and making conscious decisions about how and where you wish to test out some of the theories, some of the filters, some of the opportunities to grow personally. And I'm not also talking about jumping in headfirst and suddenly becoming a very different person. Dealing with the right level of values and ethics in your world, taking that responsibility and accountability for things that maybe you've, had a slippery shoulder and you've let somebody else grab hold of, or you've kind of turned your shoulder on or just looked the other way when these opportunities have arisen because it's either too hard or it's discomfort or you don't have the confidence or maybe self-assurance to take some of these new things on. This is about saying, okay, from within the world that I'm operating, but also where I want to get to, are there opportunities that I could actually begin to explore saying yes to? And I don't need to wait until perfection by saying yes. I could say, well, it's yes, but with maybe a few little limitations or little caveats that mean, okay, I'm going to say yes, but I might need support. I'm going to say yes, but can I actually, sort of shadow you in the early days if I'm taking on this role or responsibility from you? So working with your peers and your colleagues in a very conscious way, a very mindful way. So again, this is an evolution. This is not a revolution. It's very, very hard to have a revolution in this kind of stuff because it goes to the very core, the very essence of who you are if you do it properly. And it is about taking personal ownership and accountability for stuff. Okay, if you are the kind of person who, and again, I'm not here to judge, I'm not here to pass opinion or comment, I'm just highlighting some areas that are very interesting to explore because all of us are on this journey. There isn't a single person on this planet who has this completely dialed in. So when we talk about taking personal ownership and accountability for stuff, it is about removing the word blame. It is about removing away the word should. This is all about exploration. This is all about actively listening and observing to what happens when. So if you decide, do you know what, I'm actually going to turn up to every meeting this week 5 minutes early so I can settle in, so I can breathe, so I can get my mind in the right state of mind, so that I can settle into the room, so I can take in the ambience, the style, the tone of this meeting, so I can prepare, so I can make notes, so I can be ready, so that I can calmly contribute value to this meeting. If that is what we're talking about for you, that is great. It could be the other end of the spectrum. It could be that you are going to say yes to that thing that you've been procrastinating on, that thing you've been putting off, probably as a result of fear. And actually the storytelling that a lot of us do in the back of our minds when we say no to things, this is the time to maybe rethink this. This is the time to say, do you know that thing that I've been putting off, that stuff that I was promising myself I would do, but I never actually go all in and actually do it because I know I can just kind of turn the other way and well, it's still there, but I can just pretend it's not. Maybe now is that opportunity to say, do you know, this week I'm going to do it. And in fact, not just this week, right now, I'm going to do it. It isn't about getting it right. Okay, this is the important part of this. When you take ownership and accountability for something, it is not about perfect performance. It is not about the win or the success. It's about watching closely to what happens when you do, the sensing of the self, the sensing of your feeling and thinking and behaviors around what actually happens when I say yes. Do I feel a lift? Do I feel that I get more energy now as a result of actually committing to this thing that I've been putting off, that thing that's been giving me that sinking feeling for so long? How does it feel? Or it could be that I've said yes, and now my whole world feels like it's crumbling and coming in on me. It feels like I'm short of breath. I can't breathe. My heart rate's gone up. Oh my goodness, I'm having a panic attack. That would obviously be the other end of the spectrum here. But notice, be the observer. This is the trick, and this is the key to this whole journey of personal ethics and responsibility, taking accountability for stuff that really you've been putting off or behaviors that haven't really represented who you are as a person. And if you've been taking, and I'm going to use the phrase, the lazy option, because some of us have a tendency to take the easy route. And is that the right thing? Again, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to reflect back to you that people do. It might be you. And if it is, it's choice. You can choose maybe to explore not taking that option just the once. Observe how it feels. Observe how you're thinking differently. Observe how your body reacts to it. This is fascinating stuff. When you turn that mirror back on yourself, remember, accountability is for you, about you, and to you. This is not about saying, I'm going to say yes, but actually at the back of my mind, I've got some caveats, because if this thing fails or if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be looking for somebody to blame. That is not what this is about. This is about saying yes, maybe with some terms and conditions, but taking ownership and saying, okay, I'm going to observe what happens here, because this could get super interesting. And I might find it actually wasn't as bad as I was fearing. That storytelling could have been putting me off from something that actually was a huge opportunity. And oh my goodness, what have I been missing out on all this time? It might not work. And you might have all along been making those right decisions. But now you'll know, now you'll have the evidence that it is actually the right thing to do. So what we're talking about here all the way through this is relationships with yourself, as we've been just describing there, but also relationships with others. Being responsible and accountable and working from high morals, ethics, and values is all about relationships. It's all about your interaction, cooperation, communication, and collaboration with others. But everything here in a relationship starts and ends with you, because as we know, you get what you give. You'll know this. You know this to be true. This is a universal law. You get what you give. So if you decide for the rest of today, you are going to give absolutely nothing. It's going to be all about you. It's everything on your terms. You're going to do everything despite everybody else. What kind of a day do you think you're going to have at the end of this day? Is it going to turn out like that? We know it won't. We're humans. We haven't just been born. We know this to be true. But you start a day or continue the rest of today in a giving mindset, in a way that you're serving others, in the way that you're showing and exhibiting and feeling gratitude for everything that you have, not everything that you don't have. All of this turns out to being an amazing day. And what actually transacted, what actually changed hands? Very little. So relationships that start and end with you taking accountability for the relationship, even if to this point, the other person or the other people haven't behaved in the way you like, they haven't given you what you wanted, they didn't serve you in the way that you felt you needed. Would you know why? It's because of you. It isn't because of them. It's actually because you will get what you give. So guess what? If you're not getting what you like or what you want or what you feel you need, it's because you haven't given in the first instance. So taking an ethical, moral, and high valued position in an organization, taking accountability, working with responsibility, it all starts and ends with you. So isn't this an amazing thing? It means that the control over the decisions, how far you want to push this thing, how deep you want to get with this, is not based on anybody else's opinions or views. It's all about and all within you. You have the control. Now, you might be sat there thinking or listening to this thinking, hold on a minute, Neil. So isn't true, because I am on the lowest rung of the career ladder in my organization. I am the most junior of juniors. And I will answer you and say, it starts and ends with you. And I'll give you an example in just a moment as to how I know from 35 years of experience of dealing with this and coaching and mentoring and working on this on myself. I'm not there yet, but even through all of those years, I will absolutely guarantee you that by taking this personally responsible and accountable stance, that everything starts and ends with you. Gives you the control, no matter where you are, the most senior of senior or the most junior of junior, it will apply to you too. Because the relationships that you are then fostering, the relationships then that you're developing and nurturing are what both fuel and nurture you. Okay, they do. It's all about energy transfer. If you think about your relationships, when you're in a relationship, either a close, intimate relationship or a professional relationship, it could be somebody you've literally just met, a customer, a stakeholder, somebody you're buying something from, or a new member of staff. The relationship is the energy that goes between the two of you. So if you fuel it with positive energy, guess what you're going to get back? If you decide you're going to nurture this thing that exists between you, it's called the relationship. You know, you're not the relationship, they're not the relationship. It's this thing that sits as a kind of like an entity in between the two of you. If you both decide you're going to fuel and nurture this thing with goodness, with love, not fear, no blame, no shame, just good stuff, guess what that relationship's going to turn out like? You know, this is not rocket science. When you stop and think about it, it is so clear and obvious. But how often do we just run blindly through the working day, you know, barely stopping to take a breath, let alone think about this stuff? But when we do, there's huge opportunity and upside. And so there is something that can be really, really powerful about taking the accountability that everything is yours. It's your life. You know, somebody who you report to, well, they're not responsible for you. You're responsible for you. You know, even if you're looking after 1,000 people in a team and you're the leader of the team, you're still responsible for you. Yes, you have an indirect accountability for the well-being of these people, but ultimately their well-being is actually their responsibility. Because if we can forge a working kind of ecosystem, if you like, and that's probably a good word to be using here, working ecosystem in our organizations, in our businesses, in our not-for-profits or our charities or our partnerships that we work in, then we're going to be coming from a place that is good. We're not coming from a place where it's, well, nobody picked that up, right, now I'm going to go around and have a look and see who I can actually blame for this thing not working. It's all about saying, hey guys, this thing didn't work. Who's going to work with me to actually make sure that next time we get it right? Who's going to work with me on this little journey of continuous improvement so we can kind of figure out together how we can do this better next time? That surely is a mindset that starts and ends with you, is a far more productive and positive place to be. And, just think about just how that feels, just the way I described it. And I know just from just the way my body was feeling as I used that sentence there, it feels so inspirational and motivating. It comes from within. It comes from a place deep, deep inside us that is so, so different to that kind of practical, selfish, self-centered, egotistical way that a lot of us actually live our daily lives when we're working. It's all about me. It's all about my sales figures. It's all about me using the most of the budget. It's all about me not having to do this, but getting you to do it. That's just the way that feels and sounds is just not nice. But if we take accountability that everything is down to us and we can own this stuff and we can serve, and that the relationships that we have start and end with us, that's a far more nourishing, a far more nurturing way of operating. And as I say, a lot of this will feed over, it'll spill over into your private life as well as your professional life. So it's about collaboration. I think that's a lovely word to use here. Taking responsibility and accountability is about collaborating. It's, you give a little, somebody will give a little back. There's a law of reciprocity. It's a really hard one to say, where you get sort of reciprocal sort of value and return back from others. So if you give, somebody gives back. You get what you give. This has been known for centuries. It is a basic rule of human communication, and it's at the heart of collaboration. And that is really the true kind of essence, if you like, of personal ethics and values and responsibility and accountability. Seeking out collaboration. We are social beings. Even if you are the most introverted introvert, you will operate and behave more effectively as a human being if you collaborate. Yes, you have to find a way that's naturally, nicely balanced for you. And if you're an extrovert, you'll so get this because you get energy from your collaboration. And it is about, when you collaborate, giving without expectation. It's very, very difficult, really, in the current way that our world is set up, to give without expectation. Most of us, when we think about giving something, we're kind of looking for something in return. I give you a little bit of money, I expect your product or your service. I give you a bit of my time, it's like, right, now you owe me. It's kind of inherent in most things that we do. But could you imagine a world, and I'm going to go right down to the other end of the spectrum here, and imagine a world where everybody gave without expectation. You see somebody in need, so you give without any expectation of, oh, look how great, now I've given to you. Look, I take a quick selfie and I'll put that onto social media because I know I'm going to get some likes and some followers as a result of looking great. That's the last thing we want to be doing. Giving without expectation, giving just from the pureness of our heart, is a great way to collaborate. So maybe something to test today. Are there things that you could do to give without expectation? And think as you do this, is it without expectation? Or are you at the back of your mind kidding yourself and you're thinking, hold on, if I do that, I wonder in the future, actually, they will come back to me. They will actually give me something back. This could be quite good, actually. I could get a lot of stuff banked. I could put stuff in the bank by giving out today with the hope that actually I might get a bit of a return tomorrow. We talk about investing stuff. We don't talk about spending stuff. If I invest my time with you, I expect a return. The word investment is the clue to the outcome. But it might be that I'm spending time, and if I spend time, it's gone. But that might be for the right reasons. So as we take accountability and responsibility for some of these decisions, think about giving without expectation. And also appreciating preferences. Different people will want different things from you. So if this is all about you figuring out what is the highest level of service I can give to the people around me, what is it that I can bring that maybe they don't have or they don't have enough of, that I've got a lot of, and it could be money, it could be time, it could be expertise and skills, whatever those things are. And everybody's going to be different. It is about appreciating that certain others need certain things from us. So as we begin to kind of self-reflect and really understand who we are, this isn't about us creating a one version of ourselves. It is about proper, true collaboration. So listening to the need of the other person, figuring out what value you can bring in that moment to that person, and giving without expectation. So you literally give freely. The word is that this will come back to you anyway. It's almost a universal law. Well, it is a universal law. So you will get returned to you what you need as a trade when you give without expectation. But it might not be like for like. It might be something way more that you can't even imagine right now. So there's huge returns to be had from being responsible, being accountable, working ethically and honestly and transparently, and giving in this kind of nature. And also, as I talked about a few moments ago, this whole idea of, yes, but I'm so junior, I can't do this stuff in my business or my organization. Well, I'd say, yes, you can. And one of the big examples that I've seen, and in fact, actually, I was on a call this morning with somebody. I had two very, very similar people operating in the same business, and I support them both on a marketing perspective. Now, one is super, super reliable. She's very much exceeding her results way beyond what we might expect for this point in the program that she's actually on. So she's doing really, really great stuff. And it's the way that she does it that is so, so impressive. She is giving without expectation. She is so inspirational just by her infectious energy. There is something more that she's giving than just the technical experience and the time that she has. She's giving a real passion behind what she does. And if I compare her with her colleague, who is really operating at quite a low level, and I would say he doesn't always show up to the meetings, he doesn't always, show real commitment. There isn't that kind of burning desire to give. There isn't that kind of passion behind what he's actually doing. And there might be a whole range of reasons for that. And I'm not, again, here to judge the two of them. What I'm saying is, though, that one of them, and it is her, not him, has actually figured out a way of actually working with the hierarchy in the organization to manage them and influence them and inspire them. And this is inspiring upwards as well to some senior management through what we might term the word partnership. Okay, so this is actually taking accountability and responsibility for the relationships above the individual, not just below. So if you have direct reports reporting to you, or you have some peers and you think, well, that's okay, I can kind of influence them, I can be taking accountability for decisions that are made because they're junior to me, so it's my job to do that. The fun comes when you actually do this, managing upwards. So managing your manager, but doing it through partnership, doing it as a collaboration, doing it as an honest, open communication flow. This is when the fun really starts. And who would you want to recruit? If you were recruiting and these two individuals came to you for an interview, or they showed up applying for a role that you had, who are you going to go for? You're going to go for the one who's collaborative, the one who's communicating openly and honestly, the one who is really open to evolving as a human being, and the one who inspires you to do more and to be even more accountable and responsible yourself. So you genuinely do get what you give. And that little example, which is a real life example, and another one that I encountered actually this morning, really goes to show that this is all part of this whole blending of who you are as a person when you're actually operating commercially. And when we start to see it from the other side, so we look at you and we observe you and we hear you and we think about you in a business sense. It is all about business etiquette. It is all about being in the right place at the right time, being mindful over those relationships. It's all about being caring of everybody across the organization who you encounter, all of your stakeholders. And that is people who have a vested interest in how you are and how you behave in the organization. So who are your stakeholders? Because these are the people, upwards, downwards, sideways, who are going to have a vested interest in how you operate. So let's explore three things within the whole idea of business etiquette to see whether there's anything in here that resonates with you, you might like to play with. And of course, none of this is right or wrong. This is all super personal to you personally. All I'm doing is I'm introducing some ideas for you to think about and to explore. So the first of the three ideas within this whole idea of business etiquette is the concept of out of sight, out of mind. Now, at one end of the spectrum, people who are out of sight believe they're out of mind. In other words, I'm going to work from home today. You've seen this, haven't you? You've heard of this. This whole working from home thing, which I've been doing for some 20 years now, but for a lot of organizations, is still really new. The working from home thing, a lot of people have a discomfort there because, well, if I can't see my staff, my team, I don't know if I can trust them. To be doing the job or to just be sat there looking busy. Again, look in on yourself. If you're feeling feelings of lack of trust, what does that say about you? If you're feeling that if I can't see them, I don't know that they're doing the work, turn the mirror back on you. Is it really out of sight, out of mind? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Working from home can be super, super efficient. We know that. We've seen 2 years of most of us, if we can, been working in that kind of an environment. So how does that fit? There's a lot of research that says if you can blend being in sight and being front of mind with being out of sight, out of mind, and just being able to get on with the work, get on with those tasks without distraction, that is often, in lots of organizations, in lots of sectors, the optimum point to kind of try and reach. But good business etiquette means that if you're taking accountability and responsibility ethically for your contribution in the organization, even when you're out of sight, out of mind, you're providing incredible value to your organization and those around you. That's true business etiquette. Second thing I'd like you to think about is an obsession with courtesy and good manners. Who would you want to be doing business with? Who would you want to be sat next to in the office? Who would you trust with, the next big business decision? It's very, very likely, according to the research, going to be somebody who is obsessed with courtesy and good manners. This doesn't cost anything. This is the beauty of this. These are all attitudes. These are all values. These are all respecting the time and the energy in the relationships that you have with those around you. So courtesy and good manners, turning up on time, giving apologies when you're not able to make something or to deliver on time, being open with your communication, open, honest, and transparent. This is how people succeed successfully in organizations, is because they are obsessed with courtesy and good manners. And as I said earlier, does that cost anything? Nothing apart from your focus and attention. And the third thing I would really encourage you to think about as well is honesty without apology. A lot of us, if we can't make something, a meeting or something like that, will apologize. Why do we apologize? Let's just be honest. I'm not able to make that meeting because I have this particular task that I need to complete, which is a priority, but I can offer you this additional time if that would help you. Let's find a time that is mutually convenient, rather than, I'm very sorry, I'm taking the week off on holiday. Well, you're not sorry you're going off on holiday, so why apologize? Holiday is an amazing thing to refresh and recoup. But why do we do it? Let's not apologize. We shouldn't ever now be using the word should. Avoid the word should, avoid the word just. Take these things out of your business etiquette. Be honest and transparent and open. And then we don't need to operate full of apologies, because of course an apology is the alter ego of taking responsibility and accountability. It's making almost like an excuse, but it's just a softer version of an excuse. And none of us really need that. Imagine how you would feel if people are constantly doing that to you. So let's focus on this business etiquette in a sensible way. Being out of sight, out of mind, delivering great value, being obsessed with courtesy and good manners, and being honest without apology ever. And I will promise you, if you take these kind of things to heart, if you start to explore and experiment with these things, they will fundamentally impact on the development of your career or your business. Now, of course, we're all in different scenarios, different levels of seniority and experience, but all of this applies to us wherever we are. The professionalism that we can see and experience and exhibit through empathy. That word empathy is coming at us from every single angle right now. The world is becoming more empathic. It is. We're looking to be helpful. We're looking to understand others. We're looking to be compassionate. We're looking to think of people on the other side of the world and what they're going through. Empathy is the thing. It's the golden ticket to your career development. And it's about being honest with your empathy as well. This is not about faking it till you make it. This is true, honest empathy. So think about how you might be able to weave that, and just taking a little of extra time to be more aware of being empathic within your career. The second thing I'd like you to be thinking about as well is setting new standards, because as soon as you start doing it like this sets a new bar for the team that you're in, for the organization that you're in. And it doesn't matter how large an organization that you work in or with or for or own. This is about setting new standards from you. Remember, I said that this all begins and ends with you. If you do it, those around you will start doing it. You don't even have to ask them. You don't have to tell them. You don't have to say, hey guys, look, I'm being more responsible. Hey guys, look, I'm working from a higher level of ethical stance. Look guys, wow, look, I'm so principled and driven by morals and values. And it's not about saying that. Of course it isn't. But what it is about demonstration. People follow good behaviors. And of course, we used the word influencer a little while ago. You will become the influencer that you've been influenced by in the not too distant future. So there's this lovely reciprocal thing that will happen miraculously without you making any extra effort, because those around you will find you become quite infectious in a really positive way. And what it does, and this is the really, really interesting thing, and I've been tracking this for a couple of decades actually, and watched people who have outperformed their peers, have actually outperformed for what you might describe their age or experience, their career path. They've got to places in their career faster, more effectively, and more enjoyably than others, because they've been performing at the next level up. That example I just shared with you of the person I was talking to this morning, who against her peer is completely outperforming him. The reason being is she's actually performing at the next level up. So she is operating at a level of partnership and collaboration. She's taking ownership and accountability and responsibility. She's not working any harder. It's all about mindset. She's not spending any longer doing this stuff. She's just being mindful and thoughtful about what she's doing. And she's exuding a passion and a real motivation to those around her. It is infectious. I look forward to the next meeting I have with her for that very reason. So who are you going to be promoting? Who is going to be fast tracking through their career? It's the person who takes responsibility and accountability to heart. It's the person who is working from those high levels of ethical stance, transparency, and open communication. And maybe just occasionally exhibiting that little bit of personal vulnerability. This is really what they're up to. This is really how they're playing this game of self-development. But it is a game? Well, it kind of is a game, because it's a lot about self-reflection, seeing the reward from reflecting on the things that you see and feel as a result of trying some of these things that I'm talking about. So it is really, really interesting to do. So I just want to share with you some final little top tips of things that you can do. So respect our time as our most precious resource. So that's your time. It is the most significant thing that you've got, because the minutes or the hours that you're spending today, you'll never get back again. So as you think about this responsibility and accountability, choose carefully, choose the right stuff to explore, and respect both your time and the way you're going to spend your time, as well as the time of others. Do not keep people waiting. Remember that courteous, that business etiquette thing, the courtesy. Get value from everything that you do. Don't procrastinate. That was dead time. It's time that's lost. You're never going to get it back. So respect your and other people's time as the most precious resource you have, and obsess about that. Obsess about that rather than lots of the other things that you might be doing already now. Remember that my responsibility is X, not my job is X. Your job is just kind of the actions that you do, but your responsibility is so much broader than that. So next time somebody says, well, what do you do? Don't necessarily just say your job title, because that's just the action list that you've got to complete during the day. Talk more interestingly about what my responsibility is. And it probably is about relationships. It is about collaboration, maybe co-creation of stuff that you do in your business or your organization. So let's talk and let's reflect and let's really celebrate our own responsibilities, not just the job and the tasks that we do. Because as we've seen through this session, it's so much broader, so much more exciting than just that. And the final tip I would suggest is to never again use the word should. Okay, that word should needs to go. It'll remove the procrastination. It'll remove the kind of less important things and give you the space and the opportunity and the energy to focus on the stuff that's really going to make a difference in your professional and personal life.